I'm Yifeng Lei, co-founder and president of Aquillius, which is this innovation hub that we've been spending the past few years getting up and trying to build this community. If you guys are interested, Ron, Sarah, Eric, and I can give you tours of our facility. So this front half is office space. It's open to any of you guys to come in and utilize. We can even do event hosting such as this for you too. And then the back half is where we have our wet labs. We have our clean rooms. We have our vivarium to really help support the startups who are building any kind of medical devices, biotech, life science, clean tech. We don't care. We just want you to be able to develop your technology and get it to market. Because ultimately that is the game. That is the goal, is we want you guys to succeed so you get your product out to market to actually help the people that you guys want to help. If it's stuck inside your brains, if it gets stuck inside a lab and goes nowhere, that sucks. So what can we do differently to make that happen? And this is what we've been trying to do for the past 10, 20 years with Aquillius. And I don't know if you're going to get a chance to meet Leah. You guys can see what we've been trying to build. And the whole idea is to get stuff out to market. And if we can help you break down some of those barriers, we will try our best to do that. Outside of this physical facility, we are hoping to form a partnership with Oracle to create a digital lab. And that is to create a co-sharing access to GPUs. So if you guys are spending $10,000 to get your AI ML going, come talk to us and we can see how we can actually help you co-share that cost so that it reduces it, because then you can actually develop your technology, right? So these things that we're trying to do. Last year, we had our first Galentine's Day event, and the whole idea is to support female founders and female investors to really provide the support that we need. I'm pretty sure you're going to be hearing some stories of how difficult it is out there. And you guys are all aware, I'm pretty sure, that only 2% of VC monies are going to female-led companies. That's embarrassing, right? We got to do better. But guess what? A lot of you guys are now coming into monies, but you haven't been educated on how to actually invest. And I think that's going to be another thing that's going to be going on, is how do we educate the female owners of their money so that they actually can control their destiny and how they want to actually invest that. And Priscilla here can be that advisor. She is one of our greatest supporter. We've known her for 2.5 years. She came here, actually interned with us, and actually planned one of our events. And now she's with Edward Jones and is a sponsor of us.
Round of applause for Mifang. Yay! Thank you. Yay! Welcome everybody. Happy Galentine's Day. Woo! Round of applause for Galentine's Day. And happy Valentine's Day tomorrow. My name is Priscilla Luckhurst. I'm a wealth advisor, financial advisor, Edward Jones, but also an angel investor. And I ran a fund called the San Diego Angel Conference Fund 6 last year, which was really amazing to be the fund manager and a female fund manager. You know, women represent a small amount of finance industry and also a venture capital and founders. So I'm so happy that everybody's here, which is so awesome, to support investors, founders, women in business, and also all of the allies. So on we go. I'm also a part of New Fund and Gangels, which are also angel investing groups, and I love to support business and business development. I have my master's in finance and MBA from the University of San Diego, so I learned a lot there. I love to participate in these type of events because my passion is driving innovation forward for good, business forward for good, especially women. So yay, which is really great. Cool. So today's all about celebrating trailblazing women, everybody here, and also all of the allies. Women who are not only shaping industries, but also breaking barriers in business, in finance, healthcare, technology, and beyond. So because you're sitting here today, you are participating in that change and that trailblazing just by showing up. So excellent job. Many of you know, like Mi Feng just said, that women only get a fraction of venture capital. It dipped below 2% last year for 2024. So we're here to change that. But also there's another positive. There's a positive that women companies, woo, got an alarm going off. That's okay. Women companies also return higher returns on investment. So that's amazing and really exciting. And it's time for us to continue to move that needle forward for more investing in female founders and support. So even if you don't invest, you can support by being a cheerleader, high five, motivator, and supporter. That's a great way to support this venture too. And if you are an investor, or if you think you might want to consider that asset class, then you should definitely talk to Mi Feng and Leah. They have Aquillius Ventures that they're fundraising for now. I'm also happy to share about angel investing, how I slipped and fell into it. I didn't know I was accredited angel investor, and someone was like, "Do you have A, B, C, D?" And I was like, "Yeah." "Do you like to support businesses?" "Yeah." So I kind of got into it, and it's the best thing ever. So if you want to know more about that, I'm happy to share. And if you're a founder, so if you're a founder here, please stand up. Please stand up for these founders, and everybody, round of applause. We see you, founders. You guys are working so hard, which is doing so amazing. So keep going. We believe in you. We're here to support you, which is awesome. The more we invest in women, the more we fuel innovation, economic growth, and a stronger, more inclusive future for everybody. And today we have an incredible event ahead of us featuring inspiring panels, the startup showcase, and valuable networking opportunities. So here's what today is going to look like. We already did some networking, but you get to have a chance to do more in a little while. In a moment, we're going to do the first panel. And then after the first panel, we're going to zip right into the second panel. After the second panel, we'll take a break. So break time is there, but you're also welcome to take a break as you need all the way through. After the break, we're going to do the amazing startup showcase, which is going to be awesome to hear from the companies that are pitching today. We also have amazing judges that will be here. Some of them are already here, which is very cool. And then after the startup showcase, we'll be doing more networking. And so it's a great opportunity to connect, high five each other, motivate each other, and tell each other you're doing a great job. So whether you're here to discover investment opportunities, gain insights, or simply be inspired by everybody's journey, these are phenomenal women, and I encourage you to make today excellent and great. Lean in, ask questions. This is a safe space of support, so don't be afraid to shine and tell people what you've done. Be proud of all the things you've accomplished. Tell everybody what you're working on. Ask questions, meaningful conversations, smile at each other. It's going to be really great. So I'll wrap it up. So if I could have Liv come on up here. Let's celebrate brilliance, resilience, and ambition of women in business today. Welcome to the Galentine's Day event. It's going to be great. Round of applause. Yay! Okay, so the first panel, Livia, come on up here, who's moderating the panel. And then people who are on the first panel come have a seat right here. And we will get started with the first panel. Thank you, Renee. Melissa, yes, come on up. Athena, yeah. So fun. Okay, have a seat. Thank you. Thank you, Mi Feng. I'll turn it over to you.
I took it.
Hello.
It says green.
Testing, testing.
Can you guys hear me like this? Can you hear me if I talk like this? Okay. So hopefully no mic will be okay. But hi everyone, my name is Livia and I'll be moderating this incredible panel today. We have investors across venture and banking joining us today. I'm really excited to share a little bit more and for everyone to share how they are spearheading innovation across funding, healthcare, and women's health. So also, oh, nice. Also, I'll be using the term just healthcare innovation as kind of an umbrella term for health tech, biotech, and MedTech today. But as we get started, I would love to invite the panelists, everyone to share your name, share the fund or company that you're part of, and why you are so bullish on supporting women-led innovation today, whether it's a personal story or someone that you know.
I guess I'll go first. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Villegas, managing partner of here at Aquillius Ventures, and I also help Mifang run the Innovation Hub. And so when it comes to the venture side, we invest in early stage companies that are in the pre-seed and seed stage that are broadly in the life sciences, MedTech, and sustainability industries. And we like to have a special emphasis on companies, on markets and sectors that are underserved and underfunded, like women's health, children's health, and elderly health. And that's because that's where we see a lot of the opportunity and a lot of the drive and innovation coming from the founders.
Hi, everyone. My name is, can you hear me okay? My name is Athena Shea, and I'm a healthcare investor at B Capital. B Capital was initially started as an early growth stage VC firm, but over time that has evolved. I'm specifically a part of our healthcare fund, which services late stage Series A opportunities all the way up through pre-IPO, focused within 4 subverticals within healthcare. So 2 of them are on the life science side, those being biotech and medical devices. And then where I personally focus on is digital health and health IT. So think of new models of care delivery, intersection of healthcare and fintech, anything that helps with provider workflow automation and the like. And then I specifically have been focused on women's health for the better portion of my time within B Capital. And then in terms of why I'm super bullish around women-led innovation, so I come from a very female-dominated family. There's a lot of us that are around, and hopefully some of you can relate as well. I have 2 older cousins in particular that are twins that I've always really looked up to. They're basically my big sisters. And they're not really innovators in the traditional sense, but they are first-generation Asian American women that have really carved out their path in being creative, bold, incredibly smart, incredibly differentiated in a way that they've chosen to approach life, which I've been really inspired by. They now both have their own little daughters. They also have sons, but they have 2 little daughters that are under the age of 10. And it's been such an inspiration to see them be brave and curious, explore the world around them. So I'm particularly excited about women-led innovation, yes, for the prior generation, but then also for the new generation of little girls that are growing up.
My name is on? Yes. My name is Renee Williams. Currently, I run my own consulting firm, Williams Biotech Consulting, and I consult for both on the early stage biotech side, as well as I consult for an investment bank. And so it's the other end of the spectrum, people looking to sell their companies, hopefully for good reasons, but looking to sell their companies. I am a chemist by training. I spent the last 10 years in pharma, and the last 3 doing external innovation. So I used to work for Eli Lilly, went out in the world, found the kinds of science that they were interested in, and sort of brought it in. I can't say that a single one of those companies were female-led for some reason. Just when you send it up the chain, it was never the company that was picked, right? It just didn't look the way that it was supposed to look, or they had a different approach, or something didn't line up with the way that people always think. I am an analytical chemist by training. Numbers, equations drive how I think. So if you think about diversity, it's, outside of business, if we were in, I don't know, ecology or genetics or biology, we all know that diversity is required. There's a reason why, we do not procreate with your familiar, very close relative, right? We all know why. There's a reason why, let's say, the rainforest is the most resilient ecosystem on the planet. We even have equations for it, right? It's called Simpson's diversity equation. And basically it says diversity is equal to 1 minus the sum of the number of individual species divided by the sum, or by the total. The closer you are to 1 means the less diversity you have. Likely your population is not going to last. The closer you are to 0, the more diverse it is. The probability of resilience goes high, But for some reason, in this business space, whether it is venture capital or biotech or investment banking or, ahead of a pharma, we move away from that thought. And so D tends to be very much one. And so my goal as I move around, and I hope sort of bring biotech, especially women-led biotechs, try to help them from failing early, because it's very much a mystery on what you're supposed to do, right, to get to success. My goal is to sort of move that D closer to zero. And I think when we do so, it'll be just like biology, right? Just like genetics, we know that diversity is key. So that's my goal.
Love it. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Montan. I'm here today with HSBC Innovation Banking, led by a veteran team of former Silicon Valley bankers. We're new to market. I'm kicking off the SoCal office. I'm based in Los Angeles, but really thrilled to be here today. We're doing early stage banking and a lot of venture debt. I came from the venture capital world, so swapped equity for debt. I've been in this ecosystem for about 9 years, and I think that leads to why I'm here today. And that I've just had the privilege of being associated with so many incredible female entrepreneurs and all the way through the chain, female allocators, allocating to female GPs at venture funds who have the right networks to then allocate to female founders who then have the right networks to hire amazing female operators. And it kind of all comes full circle. It's a super important ecosystem. And I could name, a dozen female entrepreneurs that I think are just the greatest. But, ultimately, I think we're really great at it. We're incredible leaders, incredible operators. We have great EQ. We can be nimble. We can manage risk. Like, women are great leaders. And so that's my North Star of why we need to claim more than our 2% of venture dollars, because we can really make a difference with that.
Hello. All right, great. Hi, I'm Sue. I'm from Avivar Capital. I'm representing Avivar Capital today. I work in their investment team. We're a registered investment advisory firm. So what that means really is we work with institutional investors, most of the time private foundations, who have a carve out of their endowment and they want to deploy capital for impact-aligned initiatives. And so we support them on their capital deployment across all different asset classes, all different sectors, including healthcare, education, climate. And we look at venture capital, we look at funds, intermediaries like community development financial institutions, direct equity into startups, as well as project financing. So that's kind of like the role that I play. And in my role, I get to meet a lot of really incredible female founders and also first-time female fund managers, which I consider to be entrepreneurs as well. Starting your own fund, especially your first fund, is incredibly difficult. And you go through a lot of like the founding journey as a fund manager. And just getting to hear their stories and hearing how difficult it is for them to fundraise, just the different experiences that they get in meetings and in rooms that their male counterparts don't experience, I think really drives me. And I think we women have a unique perspective, but we don't often get a seat at the table in leadership, in science, in research. And so I just want to be a supporter of that. I feel like we have a voice and we have a unique perspective to add. And we bring our own lived experiences that's very different from men. So that's kind of what drives me to support women-led anything.
Nonna and
like
and
a
Livia.
hybrid thing going on.
Yeah. Feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself, Livia, and introduce yourself to the group.
Yes, so I'm on, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Hello, everyone. Livia Scheller here. It's so great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm the CEO and founder of Miami AI Ventures. Miami does not stand for really Miami, Florida. It stands for Masters of Innovation, Acceleration, Monetization, and Investments. And I started this about 5 years ago. And I'll tell you why. I actually have a background in, I have an undergraduate degree from Yale in genetics, I have a PhD in immunology, University of Maryland, background in oncology. I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for about 25 years in drug discovery. And I've been studying artificial intelligence before it's been even named artificial intelligence. And my real big passion is longevity medicine. I've had 2 biotech exits in the area of diagnostics. And what our company does is we advise women entrepreneurs mostly. We work with men and women. But I realize that a lot of women really bring a lot of great things to the table, and I'm trying to help them really be successful through one of the biggest things that Miami AI Ventures does is we bring great strategic partnerships to you to help really when people look at your company and bubble wrap you with really great people around you, then hopefully people will start throwing money at you. We do invest in Series A and pre-seed. And I heard earlier that you're talking about diversity. I'm actually Hispanic. I was born in Colombia, South America. I lived in the Amazon in a non-capitalistic environment, and I saw how people live that way. And then I'm comparing the two, and I'm realizing, you know, the women there, the way they live, and then the women, the way that we live now. And, you know, all these years that we've had diversity and inclusion, and we've gotten to this point, why haven't we broken past the ceiling of, you know, that in women hold about less than 30% of senior healthcare positions, you know, in companies. But why is this? And in healthcare workforce, the majority of women, but the underrepresentation in leadership. And I asked myself why. And then I found out why, and I realized that there's skills that women still lack, and they don't realize it in their many things that I can go over a little bit later. And so what's really motivated me, and I think to be here and to speak with you all today, is that imagine last year I sat on 25 panels around the world, and can you believe I was the only woman every time? And to get on that panel, it was amazing. I felt like I had to give my firstborn. You know, we always have to prove ourselves more. Well, I tried to, you know, so I've started looking at the barriers that are out there and helping us break those barriers. So that's what really lights me up in trying to help people in that area. I became an investor to really support women, understand that we are in a male dominated area, but we have skills that others don't have. I mean, it's amazing having diverse teams, you know, like you said earlier, better business outcomes. 21% are more profitable that have women in there. And women bring collaboration, emotional intelligence, empathy, systems thinking, you know, and fresh perspectives. And this is amazing. And from that, for that very reason, I really would like to bring women to the forefront and look how they can carve and polish themselves so that when they speak, people will listen. And when people will listen, they will provide funding for you and strategic partnerships as well. So thank you so much.
Hard to follow that. But thank you so much, Livia. Hi, everybody. My name is Nonna Titulauri, and I'm here representing Simon School Venture Fund. We are a student-run VC based in Simon Business School, University of Rochester, New York. And we invest in seed to Series B startups. We're industry agnostic, but the focus of it is not just supporting diverse founders, but also creating opportunities for students, graduate students of Simon Business School, to gain the experience sourcing deals, performing due diligence, and also performing portfolio analysis. We have about 20 companies that we've invested in. Some we've actually done like a lead on investment and had a recent successful exit with a company called Satellus that provided like alternatives to GPS tracking systems. And all this is to say is that, you know, there's a lot of organizations like us. We're actually one of the 12 student-run VCs across the U.S. So some are unfortunately underrepresented and undermined because they're like, oh, you're not like a big VC, but we are not big, but we're still mighty. As far as my background, prior to becoming an MBA student at Simon, academically, I got a bachelor's in biochemistry with a marketing minor from San Francisco State. I grew up in San Francisco, where my family moved from Eastern Europe, small country called Moldova, when I was 14. And I pursued a master's in bioinformatics from NYU, where I learned machine learning and data science and genetic gene expression in plants. That was my part of my thesis. Professionally, I've worked in marketing analytics, doing web analytic reports on oncology info sites for brands like Merck and Johnson & Johnson. And the reason why I'm bullish is because my mother was a business owner. And, I learned so much from her, and she's an incredible inspiration for me. But during the time when she had her little retail store in early 2000s, the market has changed so much. And unfortunately, she did not have the support from the community around her. She was like trying to trailblaze it herself with the changing, shifts of the trends. That inspired me to find opportunities to help founders, whether it is somebody like my mom, women, parents, maybe students, and providing those resources. I feel like growing up in San Francisco has certainly rubbed off on me as far as the startup culture goes, but the ability to give back and build a community and share those resources, I guess, is just like a mix of, being an immigrant, but also growing up in like a sunny California and then trying to actually be closer together in places like Rochester, where it can get extremely cold, like 15 degrees Fahrenheit. But I'm really excited to be here, learn from the panelists, but also share my perspective and the things that I've experienced over the last year and a half as part of the Venture Fund. And thank you for having me.
Here, I feel like everyone has space, just a common thread.
Cannot hear you.
You can't. There's a common thread and theme on, honestly, all of us.
Cannot hear you. You need a mic, please.
Can you hear this one? Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
that one we can hear, but you need a mic, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Now we can hear you.
Okay, we'll share. What I was mentioning was just like the common thread in terms of everyone in this space is so deeply passionate about just improving healthcare for women, whether it's through a personal experience that we've had, whether it's through someone that we've loved, someone that we've seen go through it. And so I'm sure that's also why many of you are here. Many of you are building in the healthcare space. And one of the things that I did want to explore was, beyond the personal reason for why we all show up to invest, to build for women, what are some of, the overlooked opportunities from an economic standpoint and from a business standpoint that you think is the reason for why investing in women-led innovation is so important right now? And I'd love for Athena, Sue, and Nonna to kind of respond to this.
So I think now is an incredibly pivotal time to invest in women's health more broadly as an industry. We know that the broader macroeconomic and administrative environment has been incredibly turbulent, especially for women. I think it was just this past December, Dr. Jill Biden and President Biden had hosted the Women's Health Conference on Women's Research, which seems like it was a really big capstone for some of the work that Dr. Jill Biden had been doing for increasing research for women's health, for ARPA-H and the like. While there was a lot of discussion about how the fact that many of these women's health initiatives and projects have already been fully funded or are going to be continued to be funded on a rolling basis, I think the tenor and the atmosphere holistically within the women's health ecosystem has been, again, because of the administration, a little bit uncertain, to say the least. Which is why I do think now is really a great time to continue to double down and ensure that women's health is a priority within the administration and then more broadly within innovators, investors, and supporters. I know the statistics have been floated around in terms of the data about what it means to actually invest in women. There's this, other statistic about how investments in women's health or women-led businesses contributes to a 35% higher ROI relative to those led by male counterparts. There's also a statistic from, I believe it was SVB, that states that investments over the past 5 years within women's health has been increasing by over 300% relative to 28% against the broader digital health market. And so there's certainly continuing momentum that's available and growing. I think now is really a key time to continue and accelerate that innovation and investment.
Can you hear me? That's like a great, really great commentary. And I maybe just to add a little bit to that is we right now, I think no one really knows what's going to happen in terms of federal funding to anything, really, like regardless of where you land on political spectrums. We saw the attack on DOE and IRA in terms of climate funding, education funding. Who knows what's going to happen to healthcare research funding? We already saw a little bit of it with the education research cutbacks. But I think with that said, this is a great time for private capital to step up because while federal funding and public funding is always going to play a very important role in fueling innovation and entrepreneurship, private capital in terms of market size is so much larger. And there's a big role for private capital to play and step up to fuel this innovation. So I think now it's really like we're seeing the vacuum, and it's the right, it's not the right time because it's always the time, but like this is a really important time for private capital to step up right now to fund women-led or women's health research. I'm sorry. And then aside from that too, I think the other part of it is also I think solutions to problems that are experienced by the very people that bring the solutions to fore is really important to support. Not to say that, you know, I apologize to all the men in the room, but not to say like men can't find a solution for menopause or whatever, but I'm just saying like we bring a unique perspective in that we have these direct experiences of some of the issues that we're talking about. So I think that's really important to think about when we think about who to fund and who to support in healthcare.
And Nonna, I'll let you respond next, but I'm just going to build off of one thing for context that Sue just mentioned in terms of like the grants. And for those of you who maybe don't know, I was just recently learning about it, but how a lot of like the NIH grants currently are frozen, and just there's a lot of uncertainty for when that will unfreeze. And so for a lot of the early stage healthcare innovation that's happening in this space, we really rely on a lot of those grants, especially around DEI funding. So that's where I think there's been a lot of uncertainty in the community, and that's where we're seeing opportunity to what you're mentioning in terms of private sector, whether it be banking or venture funding, to kind of step in. Nonna, I'll let you respond last to this question.
Yes, thank you so much. I'd say, so piggybacking off of what was said earlier, is there the right time to invest in women? I think any time is the right time, but I think it's great to observe the different trends we've been seeing that comes from anywhere from a lot of the C-suite execs of Fortune 500 companies, now seeing more women executives in leadership, a lot of the public gaining more popularity in women sports teams, but also the digital age that we find ourselves in. Although, you know, unfortunately, the exchange of information may not be of accurate information. But if you think about it, especially in the context of healthcare and like startups focusing on health, for many years recently, we just found out that all the studies that have been done and the research has been done on men. So women's bodies have not been studied really well. I mean, I recently found out that there's lots of states in the US that don't even use, you know, numbing treatment for IUD insertion in women, which is wild. And the fact that we're just catching on to this when a lot of these, like, you know, birth control opportunities have been available is just shocking. I think there are more opportunities rising, and I think that's the key to also investing in women founders, is creating those opportunities, creating those platforms, but also spreading the word and awareness about it. Because I feel like one of the most beautiful parts about like women is the camaraderie and how we support each other and how we try to really build off of the challenges and the struggles that we face. And there's also like this like unofficial, like not blood connected sisterhood involved. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful. So the more we invest in people that are sharing those perspectives, you know, and invest in a woman that is creating a women's product or a product for women, I think that naturally makes sense, right? I think this is why this is a really good time, especially to be investing in women.
I totally agree. I think one of our strengths is definitely in community. And this next question is for Leah and Renee. So specifically, when we think about the healthcare, biotech, medtech space, what are some of the unique challenges that you find women-led innovation in the space face in terms of both from actually an opportunity perspective and also from some of the challenges that they may face through like R&D or acquisition or research and funding?
Okay. You know, women as well as men, but women, when you are spinning out your company, whether it's from academia or maybe you've come on as a CEO or maybe a CTO or CSO, we are all trained to be excellent scientists. We think about the science, and if we have good science, then we should have a great company. When it comes to getting investments, how good is your science is number 3 on the list. Number 1 is how strong is your team? And it's not something that you necessarily think about. You know that you're excellent at what you do, but if you have never socialized yourself, if you didn't come from some big name lab, if nobody knows who you are, it does not matter how great you are at your science. You're still just someone who's never been in this space before, because doing science for a company looks extremely different than doing science for an academic lab. Okay? And then number 2, which we also don't think about much in grad school because there was no class. And even in, by the time you get to business school, you probably should have studied it a little bit sooner. Second is your commercialization opportunity. Who cares if it's a great technology if there's not a path to bring it to market, if it does not make sense economically? Yeah. No one is going to invest out of the good of their heart, because that is not what venture funds are for. They are there to make a return. And so it's really about thinking in the right order of how you are going to build this company. So unless you are independently wealthy, which some are, which is also not a good thing when you're trying to build a company, it comes along with other issues. You need to get investment and have some sort of betting through investment. But if you're going to spin out a company, you really need to think about the whole parts. Because third on this list is, if you are a very nice and sweet and kind woman with a soft voice, no one is going to hear you. No one is going to find you to have any kind of executive presence. No one's going to believe that you can do any of these things. When I am out playing sports, my voice is probably about 10 octaves higher. But when I speak, when I'm at a table, when I'm around the table, I used to be a vice president of a very large organization. My voice is down, 5 octaves. I generally have resting B face, but yeah, generally try to, small smile. Like, there are things about you that you really need to think about just so you can break through the noise. Because before anyone ever decides whether you're really good at your science, they're going to look at you. They're going to make an assessment straight away. They're going to hear your voice and say like, oh, she's just so sweet. She could never command this. She could never command that. And so I would say, if you're thinking about starting a company, if you're going to do these things, start working on the easy things to get you over the barrier, right? How horrible is the story that I had a great company, but I talked too soft? Or I had a great company and someone challenged me and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I backed off. Hell no. If you believe in what you're doing, you push back. And so, we've been trained. Well, my mother let me run free, which is why which is why I'm here today. But, many of us have been trained to be demure and to not push back and to not start trouble and all of those things. That does not make a good CEO, just so you know. It does not make a great founder. So those are the things that I would put out there, that a lot of it is less about your science, because you probably are the best at what you do. But there are like 5 other things you need to think about before you get there.
Awesome. It's, I tell you, it's great to see so many women in one room today, right?
Yeah.
So many.
Yes. Yay.
So many that are in the entrepreneurship realm and the VC realm, in the startup realm, in the healthcare realm, right? But this is not the norm, right? This is not the norm. So there isn't enough representation of women in these fields. And so I think, we need to do better to help increase that, right? I can tell a story of kind of like my first foray into VC, right? And so I was living in Denver, Colorado, and I was doing a lot of work with this venture firm. And as you all know, the VC realm is a very male-dominated, right, industry, and especially white male-dominated industry. And so, you know, my kind of like first experiences with a group in the venture firm, I was the only, maybe one of two females, and the only, you know, female minority within the group. Right, the rest were all white males. um, but you know, the experience there, and I just kind of want to highlight this because it kind of shows the importance of the support that we get from our male counterparts, right? And so we need that support just as much as supporting each other. I never actually felt outcasted. I've always felt welcome, and you know, everyone was just kind of there to help educate each other about the VC realm, about the deals that were coming through, and it was just kind of a nice community to be in, even though I was, you know, the only women minority in the room all the time. And then the other thing is the healthcare, the biotech, the life sciences field is also a very male, you know, dominated industries, right? And my partner and I, Mi Fang over there, she'll tell you this. So we host these sessions, you know, that are not Galentine's day, each month, right, around a certain topic within the healthcare realm. We do like medical devices, you know, sustainability. Next month we're having an autoimmune and cell therapy, you know, symposium. So things like that, you know, and so when we kind of try to bring in the startups and do these calls for applications each month, we get like, you know, 20 to 100 applications each month. But guess what? It's largely, again, like, you know, a lot of male applicants, right? 80 to 90% of the applicants are male-led companies. And so, you know, we go out and always try to make the extra effort to encourage more and more women to apply to these pitch sessions, to just, you know, try to even the playing field a little bit better, right? So we feel that once that playing field is a little bit more even, then that's when we can go in and, you know, we're in there choosing the best technologies, the best companies, the best founders, regardless of gender, right? And then I would say that the last thing on the R&D side, since you brought this up, Livia, is within clinical studies, historically, women haven't been represented well in clinical studies, right? So the data is skewed. And so it was surprising to me that within, I think just within the past like 5 years is when the NIH really made it more like mandatory to have, you know, both males and females in clinical studies, and within preclinical, you know, animal studies as well. And that's just recent, right? I mean, healthcare and, you know, therapeutics and diagnostics, they affect half the population, right? And it's been going on since the beginning of time, right? Why is it that it had only been so recent that these, you know, regulations came into play? And so just, you know, taking the light of, you know, the whatever's going on in the administration now, you know, hopefully things don't, you know, get too awry with the momentum that we've built to just kind of make things even for women's health.
Yeah, I think you touched on a great point, especially on the allies piece. Like something even very tangibly that I've been trying to do is getting, you know, my male friends to come with me to also women's health events, because it's, you know, women's health impacts all of us. And so kind of when it comes to transitioning now kind of more into like the investor LP side of things, this question is for Melissa and Renee and Livia. And essentially, my question revolves around, you know, recently, I think in 2023, Carta just released that they did an analysis of all the women founders leading companies, and specifically in the healthcare space, actually 22.3% of healthcare companies had a woman on their team, which is actually the largest percentage out of any other sector, which I think is a win. And kind of we also know that, kind of speaking to before, Priscilla had mentioned that, there are their data shows that woman-led innovation also creates outside returns. So folks that are, maybe interested in breaking into becoming angel investors or becoming LPs or just supporting on that funding side of things, what advice would you give to those people in the room
Yeah.
today?
I'll start. I think now is a great time to get involved because there is so much resource for you. There are so many community groups, both local and digital, and so many content creators. I'm hosting an event in a couple of weeks with a group called Bridge Club, which is run by this content creator, Ruffin Mitchner. She's incredible. She spotlights female founders. She helps source angel deals, incredible syndicate, incredible learning. There's also incredible female GPs that are now trying to pave the way to bring in more female LPs and also teach you as you go. A GP I talked to recently is launching a fund called Neon, and they're running a sidecar vehicle called Neon Pink, which is purely to bring female LPs into the fold to invest alongside the fund. And they're going to do quarterly educational sessions to talk you through their memos and how they're thinking about it because they believe so strongly in bringing women in. And I'm hearing stories like this all day, every day. So there's never been a better time to find the content, find the community, get the education. Really, it's reps. So the more exposure you get, the more understanding, the better of an investor you're going to be, and then the more opportunity to become a substantial LP angel investor. And then, I think just community, coming to things like this is wonderful. And the more you can ingrain yourself into communities like this, the more opportunity that will arise.
I was always intimidated by the thought. I wanted to be an investor, but generally you need to have a substantial amount of capital to buy your way in. Hundreds of thousands, depending on the fund, millions, and then there's fees and other things. And so it never really crossed my mind. But one thing that I do often as well is I just go to things. I'm just sort of out in the world, and then you just listen. And it just so happens one day, a friend of a friend of a friend mentioned that, hey, ACU Capital is doing their diversity capital fund. They really want to diversify the cap table. They want people who are traditionally not on the cap table because you don't have a few 100,000 or million hanging around to invest. We really want you in. So what we're going to do is get rid of fees and lower the minimum. So whatever amount of money that you want to bring in, technically they were like, if you want to bring $1, but nobody's going to do this for $1, right? But technically they were like, if you want to bring $1, if you want to bring $100, $1,000, $1 million, whatever you have, if you want to come in, we are committed to maintaining a cap table of 50 people versus maybe 5, right? Because it's a lot of work. And so as long as you were, as long as you met the requirements to be an investor by the SEC, and I forget what they were at the time, but someone kind of mentioned it, Priscilla, you mentioned it earlier, then they accepted you. And so it was very fortuitous. So this was in 2021. In 2020, obviously that's when the pandemic started. I was still at Janssen at the time, being wildly underpaid, and had got my bonus. You get your bonus in March, and it was just a little bit of amount. And then the pandemic started, and I'd always wanted to invest, but again, sort of intimidated because I didn't understand how the market worked and how you pick a good company. Well, when the pandemic started and everything crashed, I saw an opportunity. I was like, I don't need to be a good investor. I just need to understand pharma. And isn't it a good thing that I'm in pharma and I understand pharma? So where did I put all my money? On Moderna. So I bought stock at $18 and sold it at like $900 and something dollars, and then took that money, and that's how I became an LP. Not because I had infinite amount of cash around, but one thing of how I've always moved is ears open, find opportunities, and then connect them together. And so, it was lucky-ish of how I got there, but yeah, that's exactly what I did. Now, full transparency, I do not invest in biotech. At the time, I was on the other side of the table. I found it to be a little bit, could be a conflict of interest, but at the same time that I'm supposed to be investing as an institutional investor in companies, I'm supposed to be doing large licensing deals. That's hard to do if I'm also an LP in that, or end up being on their board. So I invested outside in tech in a space that I don't work in. Now, generally, people are like, invest in what you know, so you know where your money goes. But if I was an angel investor, that would have been the case. But as an LP, I'm kind of a hands-off LP, which I'm sure they enjoy, versus being hands-on. But yes, that's how I came up. we'll see how it pans out. But
Takeaway from that is that we should come to you for investment suggestions in the
next
future.
pandemic, in the next pandemic, I will tell you who's going to win.
Perfect.
But in front of that, no, I don't actually know how to be an investor. I know how to pick who's gonna deliver the next good plan.
I love that. And Livia, would love to hear.
Yes, thank you. So let's face it, money talks, right? So if a woman walks in with money, they're gonna say, yes, we'll take it. However, do you have a seat at the table? And this was what I learned early on. When I became an angel investor way back when, yeah, they'll take your money, but I didn't get a seat at the table. They didn't want, I'll take your money, but we don't want you on panels. We're not going to put you on the board and things like that. So I started looking at myself and I came up with a 6-point way of how to become successful as an investor, because you don't just want to give money, you want to be heard, you want to lead women to success. So what I'm about to say are 8 skills that actually are for entrepreneurs, to all of you women entrepreneurs in the field. The first is, and it was mentioned before, it is extremely important to sharpen your communication skills. You hear this over and over again, but what you don't understand, we women have been brought up by our mothers who teach us to be soft-spoken, right? Be sweet, be giggly, and things like that. You need to look at yourself. You need to look at yourself seriously. Take courses on it. All of these are free and online. Really look at areas where you're deficient in your communication skills. Number 2 is very important to build a network of mentors and allies. If you want to invest, well, find other mentors that are women and ask them, like, how do you invest? How do you figure it out, right? The same goes for an entrepreneur. Surround yourself. I call it bubble wrap yourself. Extremely important. So that once you bubble wrap yourself, you can be resilient out there. The third is, and this is going to be a tough one for most women, is master the art of self-promotion. For some reason, women don't do this. They feel like you're boasting about yourself, and that's not very nice. And most, believe it or not, and you know yourself out there, most women cut on other women who do self-promote themselves. Who does she think she is? So we got to point our fingers at ourselves and say, let's uplift those women who are doing their own self-promotion, okay? So for me, as an investor, I have to do so much self-promotion, and it feels not good for me because being a woman in the way I was brought up, but it's natural for men to do it, right? So look at that. Number 4, and this was mentioned before, extremely important of how to know how to invest. You need to stay ahead of emerging technologies. So I have a podcast, and I write for LinkedIn. You're welcome, free online advice on it's the future of healthcare, the future of medicine, to look at where we are going. What are those areas? And when you're up in panels, you'll understand where we're going, whether we should invest or not. Let me give you an example. Right now, as a scientist, I would not invest in cellular therapies, or I would not invest in oncology agents for stage 4. We have artificial intelligence. Cancer is 90% curable. Why would I do that? Why would I invest in something where those people aren't going to be available in the future? If you catch cancer at stage 1, you women who are developing diagnostics at an early stage, I'm all in. I would want to invest in you, because this is really going to take care of our healthcare system. So staying ahead of emerging technologies is very important. And number 5 is you got to have that resilience and confidence. And here's number 6. When you're going to go invest, you need to know how to negotiate. A lot of women, I'm surprised at how they don't know how to negotiate. You can take classes on it, learn, brush up on it. It's extremely important to know how to negotiate and not be that soft, meek person that our mothers taught us to do. This is business. And again, for advanced investors, develop a strategic thinking and a plan. Like, where would you invest? How much would you invest? Where would you invest in the next 5 years? So those are like my 6 key strategies for success on how to become an investor. and be impactful investor, but it also applies to entrepreneurs out there.
Thank you, Livia. I especially like kind of what you touched on like the self-promotion, and I think also goes for supporting each other and promoting like a friend or a business in your like city that is run by a woman within your community. And I'm just curious, like maybe just with a show of hands from the women in the room today, like who here is either currently an investor or interested in investing or has like donated their money in the past? Okay. Amazing. And for those of you who maybe, you know, it's at the back of your hand, but you're like, oh, like, I don't know if I've ever been an investor. Like, I kind of want to share like just a story. One of it just being that there's so many different ways to get involved. I used to think that, you know, LPs or limited partners who are investors in venture capitalist funds were kind of like hidden. Either comes from like a really wealthy family or and that you would never kind of meet them day to day walking. And even on like the angel side. And after I got into the startup world, even in building my own startup, I was able to like invest in like a few friends' startups, and those were small check sizes, like about $2,500 to like $5,000. But there's a way to invest that where you don't have to be an accredited angel investor, so to speak. There's family and friend rounds, which are very early on. And those are more accessible ways for you to also get involved early stages in someone that you know you believe in. Maybe they're building something that solves a problem that you have. And yeah, so I just that kind of opened my mind, and hopefully maybe it'll land with one of you today as well. And kind of just closing off on today's conversation before we open it up to Q&A. So I'll let you stew on any questions that you may have for panelists today. But maybe just one sentence or one word of advice that you would give to the audience today in terms of anyone that is looking to get more involved in investing, whether it's like a community that they can join or yeah, like any piece of advice that you would have, one line or one word.
I would say be involved in a community wherever that is, right, for you. We have a great community here at Aquillius. And it's in those communities that where you can find support from each other, from other women, from our allies, from, you know, the experts. It takes a village, right, to, you know, to really, you know, empower this innovation, investors, and just the whole community.
I think to build off that, I love the idea of villages. There are a ton that you can join. Synergist is certainly one that I've been a part of and found a lot of value from. All Raise is another one that I know people have gotten a lot of value from. Women in VC, another great organization. There's also one that I really like called the Old Girls Club, which is trying to turn the concept of the Old Boys Club on its head. And so a relatively inexpensive, you know, kind of platform to join where there is a lot of, or are a lot of rather entrepreneurs, a lot of investors that are around the table. So if you want feedback on a pitch deck, you can just send it across and someone will take a look. If you want some help on your presentation skills, someone can give you feedback for that. Super welcoming, very open, and incredibly collaborative. So would encourage everyone to check out all of those different community organizations.
See, I live in the Bay, and I'm trying to think of like actual names of places, but I think the thing that I like the most, or I think where you get the most out of, is just putting yourself in the situation. So there's always tons of pitch contests, so you can see what it's like to be a founder and what a VC thinks is good versus not good. There's a ton of just free stuff, and that's essentially what I did. Just throw your body in, hear lots of things, and then eventually you'll start to form your own thesis about what kind of investor that you want to be.
Plus one to community, and I think my add-on there is to always have an add value mindset. So every person you come across, it's like, how can I support you? Is it through a connection that I have, through something I learned in a past experience? Because you never know. Firstly, it just feels nice, but you never know 2, 5, 10 years down the line when that person's going to come back and collide with you again, and something interesting could happen. So always, you know, be there to support first, and the rest kind of follows.
Just to add to the list of organizations that have been thrown out, that might be good to check out if you're a new or interested in investing, is Invest for Better. And they just opened up membership for free. You used to have to pay a fee to join, but they're a nonprofit and their goal is just to empower women to use your dollars for good. And they have regional chapters they call circles. There's one here that's pretty active in San Diego. And they occasionally do educational programs and they do events, but one other thing that they do is also do like SPVs where a group would come in together to meet the minimum check size for a specific investment and going together as an SPV. And that's a really useful way if you don't have the capital enough to meet the minimum check size on your own, is to go in together in a group. And that whole experience is very, very useful and you get to learn a lot. And then I have one other comment on the flip side. For the founders that are raising today, you could be an investor too, and then on the flip side, founders. One thing I want to just say before the panel ends is to know kind of like the type of investor that you're looking for your company, because I think a lot of times why I say this is because I see, like, I sit on the other side of the table a lot. I get to fortunate enough to hear a lot of pitches, fortunate enough to hear a lot of fund managers pitching their funds. And I think one of the common things that I hear them share about lessons learned is just like talking to the wrong type of investor that will never really invest in them, that will not write that check for them. And I have an anecdote, and again, sorry to the men in the room, but one of the female fund managers, first-time fund manager, shared with me recently that she knows like right away if this guy that she's talking to made his money in traditional M&A, she's not going to talk to him because they're not going to get it. So that's just obviously a stereotype. Does not apply to everyone, but I just think it's really smart for you to spend your time wisely, to know who your investors are, target them, like, and just focus on that subset.
Great piece of advice. I'll turn it over to Livia and then Nonna.
Whenever I do something like this, let's face it, you have your money, it's hard-earned money, right? And you want to invest it somewhere, you need to understand what is the end in mind. Keep the end in mind. What is it you're trying to do with that money? And work your way backwards. So I have an investment portfolio, but my investment portfolio starts where I want to be in 10 years. You see what I'm saying? And you don't want to be all over the place. So it's very important to have a business plan. Have a business plan for the type of investor you want to be. It starts off with how much money do you have? There's so many different ways of investing. You can invest in, as an angel, you can invest, in networks, through an SPV, you could be socially conscious, you could be climate change and follow. And I would say, once you know what your business plan is going to be, then go out and this is my favorite term, is network intentionally. Our time is very valuable and we can be going to all these meetings and such, but join organizations that are intentional for you. Network intentionally as a product of where you want to be in your end game 10 years from now or 20 years from now.
Really great things said, and piggybacking off of the networking aspect, I want to say, yes, networking with intention is important. And something that was once given to me as advice is don't focus on the things you didn't achieve, but the things you're about to achieve. So whether it's, as a business school student, you got a job offer, great, you're done. When if you don't get a job offer, think of all the networking involved, like the people you're going to meet, the companies you're going to learn about. And same thing about raising money for your startup or being an investor. Like if you say didn't get that big fat check for like $1 million, think of all these other VCs and investors and founders that you're going to connect by reaching out to all these other organizations and going to all these events. So yes, we're trying to focus on the money aspect here, right? But there's definitely some things that are not measured in money that you definitely gain from it. So some of the organizations that I've interacted with, there is Angel Capital Association, and sometimes they host virtual training sessions or just like info sessions of becoming an angel investor. So we've had them come in and like do a talk about what it is, what does it take to become an angel investor. There's also community groups that you can join that are not like very finance focused, but something that combines your interests in like staying active. For example, Pitch and Run. They have big chapter in New York City, but there's also smaller cities that where they have a presence. I've joined them when I was visiting family in San Francisco, and I would go on a run with their San Francisco chapter. If there's no chapter in San Diego, guess what? You can start a chapter and bring both founders and investors together to connect over shared interests. Another thing too is I think is important is putting yourself in educational settings where professionals go into getting training. So, for example, Cal has VC University that a lot of investors sign up for, and maybe some of them have companies paying for them. But guess what? NVCA, who created that program, also offers scholarships for people that don't have VC background that are interested in becoming investors. And they have a branch that's focusing specifically on healthcare and one that focuses on like industry agnostic VC. And then that way you get to connect with people that are in this industry, are in that focus. And there's also a Slack channel that you can join so you can connect with those people, whether looking to invest or seeking to raise money. So there's all these things that you can find. And there's also free resources too. So like understanding the world of investing, maybe from more of an institutional space, will help you understand how to be an investor as an individual. So things like Techstars having their free VC training on their website twice a year. You can go to like Wall Street Oasis that you would think is focused on investment banking, private equity recruiting, but they have a free crash course on, startup fundraising and like VC. So you can take advantage of that. And those can be conversation starters that you have, or maybe like look on LinkedIn and see which people completed that program and connect with them and start those conversations. So it's really a matter of like how you turn these opportunities into results, and they may not lead to money right away or opportunities to invest from the start, but the knowledge you're going to gain from all these people that you surround yourself with by intentionally networking and being strategic about it is very, very important and truly invaluable.
Thanks, Nonna, for saying that. I don't know why I didn't think of that. That's exactly how I trained myself. I was working for a
Can't
very
hear
large
you.
company. Oops, here we go. I was working for a large company who had lots of money for education, and that's what I did. I took that money, I went to Wharton's venture capital program, then I went to Stanford's venture capital program, and then I went to Columbia's venture capital program. I didn't pay for any of it. It was expensive, but it's okay because I didn't pay for any of it. But that is how, because I do like formal education. So because I just wanted to know the words and I wanted to understand the language and the people, and just so then I felt comfortable when I went to go throw my body into whatever situation that I sounded like them. And it sounded like I knew what I was talking about, even though I didn't at the time. But you have to start somewhere. So yeah, great note, Nonna.
No, great shout out to all of the free, we love free and we love accessible resources. And thank you to every one of you today for kind of your expertise and background. I want to open it up now for Q&A. Yes. I think you can just ask it out loud.
We can't hear.
Okay, hello. Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. My name is Elena McAdams, CEO and founder of CAHEC. My question really kind of goes back to the vocabulary. So you mentioned, of course, healthcare is predominantly women, dominated, especially at the bedside or whatever. But what I found is when you're trying to raise money, you don't speak the same language. The vocabulary is very different. My question is, how do you help entrepreneurs who are women bridge that gap? What kind of resources do you recommend? Because you're right, those courses help, but usually in healthcare, they don't give you access to Wharton or some of those VC courses or things that get that vocabulary. So is there anything readily available that you recommend to be able to bridge the gap so the folks who are on the healthcare side can speak the language to get the money?
So again, I'm all about putting yourself in that situation. So maybe you start at a small something to where maybe the people like ultimately the VCs you're looking for maybe aren't there, so you can practice. This is just generally what I do. You go and you talk to people, you hear the words that they say, and sometimes I'm just like, oh, what does that mean? I don't know what you're saying, or if how did you calculate that valuation so quickly, or whatever the case is. If you can't afford the I guess the high end version, I think it's like learning a language. If you immerse yourself, you learn the best, and that's generally what I do. And I'm not afraid to ask, what does that mean, either. And so that I can just learn on the spot.
Also, hi, this is Livia. There's actually, I'm a scientist, and you're breaking into the venture capital world about 5 years ago, and I didn't know who to ask. There is free VC handbooks online that you could read to understand all the acronyms that you need to know, all the statements and so on. So brush up on that. Here's the other thing, guys, ladies, I should say, we are in the advent of AI. You have your own robot that you can ask anything you want, right? And so I have a robot who tells me every day, like, what do I need to know? And scours the information, like, what are the trends going on around the world, and scours the whole internet. I'm telling you, artificial intelligence can be your best teacher. So you can learn a lot in a very short amount of time with the technologies we have today. So use them while you can.
Oh, yeah, so I was just gonna add, I'm gonna out myself a little bit here. My background's not in finance; it's in health policy. So I actually knew nothing about finance before coming into VC. I taught myself how to model on YouTube, if that dates me at all. I'm sure it does. Back in the days of Khan Academy and the like. So great resource if you want to just skim through anything. Obviously, AI now is changing the way that we're learning, and a great educational tool. One of the books that was given to me when I first joined Venture was this book called Venture Deals, which was essentially how to become a better VC than your VC for entrepreneurs. And they gave it to us as associates. And so definitely a great, relatively inexpensive resource that has all of the jargon, all of the lingo. And if there was something that I didn't understand in that book, I would just Google it and say, can you please break this down VC for Dummies style for me, please?
I think there's one more book called Venture Deals. That's also okay. I don't know why I heard wrong. Okay.
Yeah. So Techstars course is basically the video version of the book.
Yeah, and someone else had mentioned Allraise as well, which is an incredible tool for, and they go through kind of just specifically the challenges and questions that women get asked differently than men. And there was an HBS study that was done on this as well. So they go through kind of how to navigate that and how to answer the question that you want to answer. But yeah, do we have any other? Yes.
I think that was my comments. I've seen a lot of discussions among impact investors about the vacuum that the federal funds will leave behind once we know what's actually happening. So, and it's early days, so everyone is still discussing like what is their role. For example, like an institutional investor, like a private foundation, while they are very impact driven, there's still fiduciary responsibilities that they have to consider when it comes to like what they can do with their money. But there's conversations like, and with impact investors, their risk appetite tends to be greater. Like they're willing to take a risk on companies that maybe have not shown like product market fit yet or proven track record, but they're willing to put their money and bet on the founders, which leads me to my other point of it really depends on who you're talking to as investors. Like, I think like the sort of like descriptors that you used earlier can sometimes describe some type of private capital investors. But I don't think that represents all. And I think you have to, as a founder, it's really your responsibility to take on investors that are aligned with what you want to do with the company, with your values and with your mission. Because when you take an investor onto your cap table, you want the investor to be along with you for the rest of your journey. And so when you're earlier on in the race, it's more important for you to take on investors that are aligned with your mission, who's gonna weather the bad times with you and not gonna be just like a fair weathered friend. Yeah, I think in terms of profiles of investors, like you have friends and family, you have family offices, you have foundations, and then you have like pension funds, insurance, those large like sovereign funds. I think, and I'm sure I'm missing many in between the continuum, but I think as you go from left to right, the more sort of like rigid they become as an investor. So like what I think may be more suitable for an early stage company, maybe investors on the left side of the continuum, like friends and family offices, private foundations who are more maybe, I wouldn't say they don't expect a return, but there's like a social mission behind their financial return expectations as well. So maybe those are the investor profiles that you target early on, because they have more flexibility compared to like a pension fund or a large endowment can do with their money.
Okay, we have time. Last one.
Sit on the pharma side anymore, but CVCs play somewhere in the middle when it comes to investing. We like, I'm going to say we as if I was still there, but we like to invest early on something new. So I spent all my time in the RNA therapeutic space. And so for a while there, every couple of years, there was a new type of RNA coming out. And I would argue that it was probably still closer to basic research because it was just, oh, circular RNA, don't know anything about it. Here's $1 million. It's going to go a long way for you. And it's like nothing, right, to a larger company. So I take your point and it's spot on. So I wonder if that's where, I don't know, maybe a CVC comes into more of that early stage investing again, which maybe there's not much of an ROI for them, but they're not looking for the same type of multiple their ROI is just the science itself, right? Versus what that, and you already know that it's going to be maybe 10 years before you see that. So that's maybe the closest answer I have is maybe that's where people should be looking and who should be part of this conversation.
Yeah, and maybe only thing that I have to add to it, and I don't know in terms of like how much they're investing specifically in like the initial research, but maybe it is like kind of we'll be seeing more partnerships in this space. Like I know Eli Lilly and A16Z recently had a partnership a few months ago. So maybe it's that combination of like institutional big pharma players with the innovation and VCs that will be able to create bigger funds to be able to fund those. But I don't know, initially off the top of my head, I don't know if VCs will be the only one to solve that. I think it will have to come with collaboration, partnership across like the industry.
What's interesting about that collaboration is, this is the first, not meant the first, but everyone sees that forward facing, but almost every large pharma is an LP in 30, 40, 50 funds because we want direct access to that, whatever that new data is straight out. And so I think it's interesting that now they're technically still sort of on the same side of the table, but it's like, hey, look, now we have a partnership. We're going to make this fun with you. I think it was a $500 million fund or something like that. But they've been putting in a ton of money behind the scenes for a long time. It's how you get access to data.
Okay, I have more questions, but our time is up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the questions, and we'll have a networking period after too.